Yeah, baby.
Oh, wow. It's really hopped up.
I gotta get excited.
He's been hanging out with the walking red algae at the beach.
Oh, man, I love those guys. I'm so glad you introduced me. What's up, everyone? We're back. Yeah, baby. We are back.
Okay.
I love my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back.
Look at that lighting.
Look at that lighting. Steven Tom Thorpe looks amazing.
Look, he's showing his teeth.
Good. They're beautiful.
The bonobo monkeys do that. That's their greeting.
Bonobos. All right.
All right.
Steven, we will see you in about 30 minutes.
Okay, tell me when I'm ready to record.
Don't say this is the end.
Doobie doobie down, doobie doo down down, comma comma down, doobie doo down down, comma comma down, doobie doo down down. Breaking up is hard to do. You say that breaking up is hard to do.
That's good stuff.
Are you ready, Ed?
Indeed I am. All right. All right, Steven, we'll see you in a little while. Turn off that camera, would you? Unless you want to go with my original idea.
Welcome to The Funniest Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Where each week we share stories about how stepping out boldly always leads to better than expected outcomes.
Yes.
I'm Darrell.
I'm Ed.
And we're broadcasting live from middle school studios in beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
Yes, it is a beautiful day, and it is a great habit to break. That's the name of the show today. It's a great habit to break with actor Steven Tom Thorpe. A poverty consciousness is a great habit to break. The truth is prosperity flows freely to and through you now. When you feel stuck or worried, remind yourself that everything you need for a prosperous life is available to you now. If you get stressed or feel impatient, pause and notice whether you're holding too tightly to what you want. Focus on something you're grateful for. Practice gratitude. Practicing gratitude breaks you free from poverty thinking and opens your mind to receive. Remain open to the ways your prosperity may manifest. Recall times when the outcome of a worrisome situation resolved in a way that was even better than you had hoped. On this episode, Darrell and Ed share how they and many others break free from poverty thinking to enjoy success without struggle. That's a great thing. Success without struggle. That's how you know you're doing it right. And during the second segment, actor Steven Tom Thorpe shares how our only limitation lies in the negative use of our imagination. With today's reading, faith is simply knowing that God can do it.
Funniest thing.
Yes.
Here's a postcard I forgot to mail to Kirky.
Oh, baby.
And it's found in an old book, and it's from March. So do you understand what I just said?
Yeah, let's go.
No. I forgot to mail this.
Amazing.
From March 8th.
Mm-hmm.
So that means Nancy Norman was still alive, correct?
I don't know. 3 months ago? I don't think
No,
so.
this is more than 3 months
Oh,
ago.
what year was it? No, it's 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 months ago. I don't think Nancy was still around at that point. I mean, she's still around, but I don't think she was in her body at that point.
Well, guess what? It goes perfect with today's show.
I could be wrong.
Change your words, change your life.
Yes.
When you change your mind, life has no choice but to recluster itself according to the new level of vibration at which you are operating. That's from Alan Cohen. And then I wrote a little affirmation. I am continuously guided to my greatest good. Thank you, God, for inspiring, guiding, and motivating me.
Well, I got to tell you this, though, because this week Kirk sent us this one, which has the Hawaiian, what is that, Hawaiian punt?
That's
it's Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid man.
Kool-Aid
bursting
pitcher.
through going, oh, yeah. And he said, and Kirky said to you and us, I will not give reality to trouble that may never come. And that's from an Al-Anon book, One Day at a Time. But he says, we create reality through our thinking. If you don't like your reality, change your thinking and your reality will change. Oh, yeah. So if you want to send us something, Funniest Thing, P.O. Box 1312, Culver City, California, 90232. Because the truth is God is always speaking to us lovingly, encouragingly, bringing us everything we want, need, and desire in ways that we can't even imagine. So the learning to trust our intuitive thoughts, our positive thoughts, our inspired thoughts is the key to everything.
And
we want to read something right there?
This is about breaking the poverty consciousness. So what does that mean?
Right.
It means switching from a getting mentality to a giving mentality.
Yes.
Because a getting mentality is a lack mentality.
Right.
And it means that I'm fearing more than I'm faithing.
Right.
And if you find yourself impatient, traffic's not flowing enough fast enough for you. I mean, I'm talking about myself here. I have to remember, okay, if I'm getting impatient, it means I'm starting to believe in lack.
Yes.
There's not enough time. I'm going to get there late. I'm going to be in trouble. I'm going to look bad.
Right.
And then that generates more fear,
Yeah.
which makes us more impatient. So the key about breaking, as this poverty consciousness is a great habit to break, we break it many times throughout the day. Mm-hmm. We get better and better at it.
Yep.
And we don't linger in that thinking as long. But as we break free from it, it's the same as doing what's known as the denial. So we're breaking out of the thought that's making us feel bad.
Right.
And then our mind naturally becomes open and receptive for us to say what we do want, which is, you know what? I'm going to get there in divine order.
Yes.
Nothing happens by mistake.
Yep.
And I was just thinking about this with the breaking of the habit is the denial, and then allowing for the good to come in. Impatience, I just read this definition of impatience, impatience means I'm at war with reality.
Yes.
Impatience means I'm at war with reality. I like to go deeper, though, and say, well, impatience is lack of faith and belief in lack, because that helps me get out of it easier.
Well, it tells you what the war of reality really means, right?
Yes.
It clarifies it in a practical way.
Yes. Otherwise, it just becomes, I'm fighting reality. What do I do now? And then the tendency, from what I used to think it meant, was grin and bear it. But when you use metaphysics, which means living in the thought realm, the cause, metaphysics just means using the unseen cause to have a material experience, the effect. So whenever metaphysics is mentioned in all these books, even going all the way back, 600 years before Christ, philosophers were talking about these same ideas that Jesus spoke of. All the way back then, 600 years before Jesus Christ, and this is in the book by Emma Curtis Hopkins, she mentions the philosophers that were actually saying the same things that science has just proven in the last century through Einstein's theory of relativity, that all matter is unreal and spirit is the only reality. All matter is unreal and spirit is the only reality, meaning everything is energy. It's a benevolent, harmonious energy. And then the philosophers then theorize that if we think according to these harmonious ways, well, then we will live a prosperous life. And thinking in these harmonious ways, what the hell? How do you know if you're doing that? By how we feel. Mm-hmm. If I'm feeling bad and I'm in traffic, it's because I'm impatient. And all the things I mentioned just a few minutes ago, it's a belief in lack. So I just have to switch my belief, and then my feeling nature changes and I'm in a good feeling state. And what happens? Well, then circumstances reflect that. One last thing I want to drive home is on a talk given by Reverend Ike this week I listened to, was the best definition I ever heard. It's the esoteric meaning of the word enemy. Because, we hear that a lot in biblical texts. And people like myself, I had no idea what that meant. We give it some reality, which we're not supposed to. It's an esoteric, symbolic book on how to live metaphysically. Once you understand the spiritual nature and the symbolism in the Bible, it gives us actual healthy psychological tools to not just endure life, but to transform life. And he said, whenever you see enemy, my enemies, or the enemy, or the one and only enemy, whenever you see that in biblical writings, it symbolically means, the esoteric meaning is simply any thought or belief that gets in the way of my good. And think about that. Any thought or belief that gets in the way of my good. So now that takes the reality of it being someone out there, and it immediately makes me realize, I'm getting mad at this person. Why? Because I'm afraid, like Lori driving down to her gym today, they're having a peaceful protest, in quotes.
A peaceful protest indeed. Go ahead.
So so she said, okay, she affirmed the best. She drove down there and the place was closed, but there was nothing, because they just wanted to be safe. But she was able to just shift her gears and realize, okay, like I started to do when I was thinking about her, I had to switch to the enemy is just fear of Lori being harmed. Like getting hit by an accidental rock being thrown by a peaceful protester and stuff like that. So I had to go, okay, it's my own fears, which is the enemy, thoughts and beliefs in my own head. So I have to neutralize those.
Yes.
And then things change for me, meaning I get to feel more at peace. Right. And then my own reality, my own good has free flow into my life without interference.
Thank God. Enemy and devil is the same thing too, right?
Yes.
All that stuff is synonymous. I just want people to understand that everything Darrell just said about enemy.
Even the word Satan.
Yeah, too. Satan from Hebrew is just adverse thinking. Yes. Same exact thing. And it comes back to what you're saying about denial. It means acknowledging that fear is a lie.
Yes.
And to be able to do it within myself and that's humility too, for me to be able to say to myself, because I probably picked it up from a parent, my mom, or church, somewhere where someone sort of like insisted that this is the truth, and they're like, as a kid, it's just got internalized. But if it's fear, it's a lie. And this denial means acknowledging. And I'm telling you, sometimes I've identified with it for so long, it's like I have to if I've been identifying with a lie for a very long time, I have to stick with it because my subconscious mind is going to keep trying to convince me of that lie is the truth. But that means that my good is very close at hand. And like you were saying, letting go, the message my intuition has been telling me is let go. And I said, I don't really know what that means. And what came through me, it just means relax and enjoy this moment. That's all letting go means. Because sometimes if you get caught in trying to let go, I start holding harder. I'm letting go. No, it actually means go out and do something fun. Call someone, text someone, do anything that involves relaxing and enjoying in the moment so that I can tap back into the truth, which is that only the good is real. And then one thing that might help you, start writing letters to your angels. That's what I've been doing. We got that from Catherine Ponder last week in a newsletter, and I've been using it every day. because it helps me. I go, dear healing angels, thank you for taking care of this thing. Relationship angels, whatever you want. It just lets me let go. And a friend of mine texted me something like, just super like doubtful. Is God real? I just found out this thing financially. And I said, well, you better start. I said this because I've been having to apply it myself. You better start affirming the good, because if every time something like this comes up, you start doubting whether God is real or God is there, that means we got to work on our own subconscious. And because that's really what it's about. It's like, we don't really have to make anything happen. I just have to stop fighting the good. Like you were saying, what did you say? Fighting with arguing with reality or whatever. And the ways you described it makes it so much easier. Start blessing, start feeling good, start affirming that only the good is real. And so I texted this friend, here's something I learned. And I actually had thought about her because I know she loves angels. So I said, I've been writing letters to the angels. I just thank them for my good in advance. I thank them for helping me. If I have a crisis of faith where I acknowledge, like this happened to me this week, I was like, I'm just having trouble. I know this stuff is true, but I'm just having trouble letting go. There's a lot of doubt coming forward. I said, thank you for blessing my mind and helping me to release those doubts. So I told her that last night, blessed it, let it go. When I woke up this morning, I got a text that said, you're never going to believe this. Right after I talked to you, or right after you texted me about writing letters to the angels, I went to dinner. And remember, she was having financial stuff, and so worries. That's all. I don't want to say financial stuff. She was having financial concerns, because majority of the time when I look at what I'm concerned about, it's not actually really happening at that moment in any way. And then when I believe those fears, I become the most selfish person, because I stop loving and appreciating the people around me. So that's another thing I've been letting go of. But anyway, so I got the text from the friend who I had suggested writing letters to angels. She was having the financial stuff. She said, you're never going to believe this. I ate my dinner. When I went to pay, they said someone had paid for it already, that I didn't need to pay. When I asked them who paid for it, the cashier at the restaurant, whoever was taking the money, said an angel paid for it. And she was just blown away. She thanked me. She was just so grateful. And then again, these little things, they're little, but the big thing is that they remind us of what is real, which is that we are divinely loved, supported, and that we are expressions of good, and that all the living ideas that we believe, they're lies, they're false.
Well, here's the thing about just this morning about letting go. I was writing to myself that I let go and fall into the positive. I surrender to the river, that life is this positive flowing river. And you could always use that one. I just surrender and let go and know that I've always been taken care of, and I'll always be taken care of. And also a great tool when you were saying about thinking that money is the problem, it's not really the problem. Well, another thing in the Emma Curtis Hopkins book, and it's called Scientific
Christian Mental Practices.
Yes,
Scientific Christian Mental Practices.
So in there, I couldn't believe this was in there. So she talked about somebody in the past being concerned about finances, and today is a prosperity episode. And in there, she said the thing that worked was doing a total denial, where they go, I don't need money. And the word need, the idea of need is the wall that's between us and our prosperity.
Yeah.
So by saying, I don't need money, it almost sounds like, well, I don't want to say that. That'll jinx it, because I do need money. No, I don't mean my life doesn't depend on it.
That's right.
And
that's just a fact.
And by saying I don't need money, that denial now kills the little, she calls it in Old Greek, in Old Greek, it's the N-I. That's how it's spelled. N-I, that this word is the block between us and the Om, O-M, which is spirit. So by giving a firm affirmation, I don't need money, well, automatically we open ourselves, we knock that wall out, and then prosperity comes. Dugan cured me of money issues by saying, money's not your problem. And I couldn't argue with that. And so now we always say that. If I start to say anything about finance, the lawyer will go, money's not our problem, never was our problem. I go, you're right. And sure enough, we get evidence that it's not the problem.
That's right.
And it's okay. So then what is the problem? The problem is me thinking it's a problem.
Yes.
Or me thinking I must have it now or we're going under.
Yes.
And
That's right.
it's amazing how enthusiastic I've gotten, even when times we've been in debt or had to do some adjustments financially. Once my mind gets to the money's not my problem, then I start getting enthusiastic. In what wonderful way is my supply going to end up coming to us? And sure enough, it comes.
Yes.
Always, and still does. But I still have to apply this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it takes work, but like one of our fans wrote us a letter, it's delightful work.
Yeah. Yeah, we could turn anything into a false idol that we say, no, this is the reason, money, or could be physical health for me in different ways that I've been learning about, where I go, no, it's not my mind, it's my body. It's not my mind, it's this. But it's never true. If I really slow down, and it is miraculous the healings that can come. Let me just read this thing, because part of this is understanding that we are divinely connected. When we think that money is the issue, or we think health is the issue, now we're clinging to the third dimensional outside world. When every one of us has God speaking to us and through us all the time, if we not only to tune in and listen and hear it, because there's one level of faith which is like, wow, God exists. I'm so much better off than I thought. There's another, and to live truly prosperous, and I'm learning this. I told Darrell the other day, I found out that I, in air quotes, accidentally overlooked the application to teach summer school this year. And I've been kicking old fearful voices out of my head left and right, especially related to my job. And wouldn't you know, finally a dream that I would never allow myself to have came true. I'm finally walking away from a school year and not going right into teaching summer school. And it's exactly what I need. And I know I'm going to be more prosperous as a result of, because, what am I going to do without that paycheck? Well, now it's like you said, now the more I accept that I don't need money, God, the more excited I am to see where this is all going to go. And the more I realize, you know what, I just needed downtime to really reconnect and really connect with my inspiration again. And that is more valuable than anything else. And Catherine Ponder, I just got this out of Darrell's library, the dynamic laws of prosperity. People whom the world considers to be of genius caliber are those who have had the courage and confidence to listen to and follow the guidance of their intuition and creative imagination. Because you think about it, the people who do amazing things are the people who just somehow found it within themselves to see the obvious that everyone else's fearful mind was overlooking. They see the obvious, they have the boldness when everyone else didn't agree it was real, to just live by it, bring it to light, put it in their art, their music, medicine, whatever it is, and they become geniuses, right? Or known as geniuses. And Darrell's done some great teachings on what that means. But she says, as they follow their inner leadings, the results are usually so wonderful that others believe they have unusual gifts. They do not really possess unusual powers. They are simply actively using their intuition and creative imagination rather than stifling these mind powers as most of us are inclined to do. We too can stimulate our intuition and creative imagination as genius powers for prosperity, success, and more satisfying living. And that means you got to chase out of, I'm learning, chasing out of my head, blessing out of my head. It's not always really chasing, but it's blessing the hell right out of my head of any voice that tells me that I am not good, that I can't trust life, that any false beliefs from the past where I believe that I was on my own or that there was lack, all of it is false evidence appearing real. And by using our word as our wand, and we may not even believe that our word works anymore, but it does. We just have to keep practicing it, and the subconscious mind might still keep, and it might even double down. Oh yeah, like, this is how bad we are, but you have to just keep coming back to your morning routine, your evening routine, because every time I feel like I'm on the brink of being overtaken by fear, when I meditate and let it go, I feel like I'm blessed 1,000-fold for not buying into the fear. You know what I'm saying? And I learned something new and amazing about myself.
Here's a good reading from Touchstones, a book of daily meditations for men.
Yes.
But women like them too. And it starts off with a quote. You must fight off a bad luck way of thinking as if you were dealing with an invasion of hostile forces. For that is precisely what you are dealing with. And that's by Maxwell Maltz. And in it says, destructive forces are the pull of old habits, bad luck, accidents, and negative thoughts. We must choose on which side we will put our energies. Are we men and women who hate ourselves, believe in bad luck and despair, and thereby join the forces that would tear us down? Or will we choose to be on the side that builds us up? And the affirmation is, I will join the forces that are on my side. I will stand up for myself and my worth. And then I wrote, I'm in my own corner. And there's a saying that, referring to that reading Ed wrote, about the real geniuses are the ones that they have the humility to listen to the inspired idea and not dismiss it. And then they have the motivation or the initiative to follow through on it. Well, there's a saying, ignorance is bliss. And it has to do with that statement. The statement of geniuses are the ones who are humble enough to go with that voice in their conscience or intuition, whatever you want to call it, God in you, that says, do this. It sounds silly. Yeah, but just trust me.
Yes.
And you go with it. Well, why is ignorant is bliss have to do with that? Because that just means you're ignorant. Well, we got to look at the etymology of these words, because the real statement is ignorance is bliss when you're ignorant of your limitations, of your own limitations. And ignorant means to ignore. So ignorance is bliss, meaning I will prosper joyfully if I choose to ignore my limitations, meaning the limits I made up in my own head.
Yeah.
That's saying because the way I grew up, or I never knew how to do that before, or I can't learn something new, or that's too hard. Anything that's causing a block between me and what that inspired idea gave me the hope to pursue, well, that's a legitimate limit that I'm making up. That's something false, because I'm starting to dismiss. So I need to choose to ignore, like we said, whatever you want to call that, these words that have been used throughout history, Satan, devil, any of these, the enemy.
Yep.
It's just the things that I am thinking and believing that get in the way of my good.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to choose to ignore it when I could go, oh, that's what this is.
Right. And you got to realize what he's saying, ignore. It means I'm standing here and there's a voice inside my own subconscious telling me this stuff, and I have to redirect. And this, I read 2 quick readings this morning, Creative Responsibility from Thomas C. Sicking, we highly recommend, where he says, give yourself at least what you are willing to give the other fellow. Stop judging and condemning yourself for past actions and words. Love yourself. Bless yourself. Let the past go. You're doing the best you know how to do according to your present understanding, just as in the past you did your best at that level of understanding. Love yourself and accept yourself right where you are, and don't worry, you won't be there long. That's the key. By letting go, fighting with where we are, condemning, running from, that actually keeps us stuck. Blessing us, blessing ourselves, forgiving ourselves for whatever beliefs we've been, whatever we might be struggling with in that moment. and surrendering into the perfection of this moment actually is the fastest way through. And Foster McClellan in Thoughts for a Friend has a reading called Greater Than We Think, and I read it this morning. It says the best advice we can get when we're down about something is forget it. Thinking about problems is wasted effort. This is also what Emmett Fox teaches and calls the golden key. We already know what they are. He says thinking about our problems is a wasted effort. We already know what they are. Instead, think of some way we can really give of ourselves. And this is what Darrell was saying, get into a giving consciousness. To our job, our home, to being a better parent, a better friend, a better person. You see, if we can lose ourselves in an ideal, we can discover a whole new person. It's never too late to discover the new person. Instead of later than you think, as the saying goes, the truth is that we are always greater than we think we are.
Yes.
And what we think we are.
I got one last reading before we bring Steven, our guest, on.
Yes.
Because remember, the prosperity consciousness is a lack mentality, and it becomes a getting mentality. I got to get.
Yes.
As long as I get, then it's okay. Then maybe I could give. But that's not how prosperity works. We have to get into a giving mentality to open the channels for our good to flow in. And this is from a book called The Secret of Unlimited Prosperity. It's a nice little thin book. I highly recommend it, by Catherine Ponder. And it says here, Gardner Hunting has also written, many things you want most are now within your reach. By the act of giving, you open the way for the things within your reach to appear quickly. These things have been wanting to come to you all the time, but were blocked by your lack of giving because there was no free channel through which they could appear. Your giving opens and frees the channel. And then here's another thing to keep in mind. To not think it's sacrilegious to expect good, or to expect your finances to improve, or to expect good opportunities. And it's also superstitious if you're telling yourself, well, I can't think that way because then I'll jinx it, which is a common thing. I do that sometimes.
Yep.
And I have to snap it out of my head. Darrell, you're being superstitious. Here it is. It is true that you cannot get something for nothing. You must give to make way to receive. The law also works the other way. You cannot give anything without getting something for it. Give the best you have and then look for the best in return. This is the law of receiving. Meaning, I don't do things manipulatively. I'm not kind or generous to a specific person or place with the manipulative intention that then they're going to feel like they have to give me something.
Right.
No, this is not saying that. This is saying abandon any intention of thinking if I butter this person up before the shave, I'll get mine. It's saying abandon that. Just give freely wherever you feel inclined. And that could be generous with your smile, generous opening doors, letting someone in traffic. That's all tithing. But then expect that good is going to always be yours. Protection will always be yours because now you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. You're in the flow. And funniest thing, the etymology or the definition of affluence means to be in the flow.
Yes. Yeah, we all have genius. And when we let that flow, everything about our body and our mind and our circumstances has to change. It's like when we're not letting it flow, when we're not feeling affluent, it's like we're not even it's like something that's a blender that's not plugged in or whatever. We don't even know how great life can be until we plug in and get in the flow. Let's thank you, by the way, to the Patreon people who are supporting the show through the Patreon each month, contributing. We love you guys. Patreon.com/funniest thing is the way to contribute each month. You can $5, $3, $10, $100, whatever you feel good about circulating. If you're enjoying the show as much as we do, then please do.
It does take time, effort, and money for us to produce this show, and we do not want commercials on this show. And all of you who contribute through Patreon make that possible. So if you're enjoying the show, benefiting in any way, and you want to get Darrell and Ed a cup of coffee, you could do it at Patreon. Was it .com/?
Funniest thing.
There you go. And it's greatly appreciated.
I know Sue Hodgson and Lois Conklin are out there in YouTube land watching. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you ever want to see us and hang out with us live on a Saturday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, figure out the rest of the times, you can actually go onto YouTube, Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, and do that. And if you do like the show, like the video, subscribe, do all that stuff. It helps more people access it. Thank you to Jeff Comfort, Chief Engineer out in Kansas City, Kansas, because each week
he takes us right into the comfort zone.
Oh, this is what I sent you today. Let's just do this for breaths. Because everything you were just saying.
What is it?
Let's take a deep breath, Sarah. This is a fantastic day through and through. Only the joyful good is true.
This is a fantastic day through and through. Only the good is true and true. Is that it?
That's good enough. Only the joyful good is true. Because that's what we need to remember. Let's take a deep breath. Oh, no. This is a fantastic day through and through. Only the joyful good is true. Only the joyful good. That's that reading you were talking about. Everything that's true is joyful. Think about that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Coming up next, actor Steven Tom Thorpe shares how our only limitation lies in the negative use of our imagination. With today's reading, faith is simply knowing that God can do it. So thank you for listening to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed, live from Middle School Studios in beautiful downtown Culver City, the heart of Screenland.
And now Steven Tom Thorpe can turn on his microphone and his camera.
And his beer. That's Billy Joel with the microphone and the beer.
His microphone smells like a beer.
That's right. Lois Conklin said, "Hi, I'm enjoying."
I already drank my beer.
Oh, nice. Oh, that'll go perfectly with our story at the end. Lois Conklin said, "Hi, I'm enjoying my afternoon time with you all. Had a fun morning doing art with neighbors. Take care, Lois C. Love the Angels connection. We love you too. I love the fact that you're still out there. Not still. I love the fact that you're out there creating, and having met you on the show, and everyone else who listens and watches the show got to love you. So we appreciate you tuning in. Sue Hodgins in Canada right now. It's amazing tuning in. Steven Tom Thorpe will be kicking off the second segment momentarily. I don't know. We can ask him momentarily.
Did you go to the Daniel? Is he going to eat with us?
Not right now. We got a show to do. I guess you call it eating. We're going to eat the bread of the Lord. All right. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. Today's show is called It's a Great Habit to Break. We have actor Steven Tom Thorpe live from beautiful Marina Del Rey. Steven Tom Thorpe, I just want to say, while on the break, while I was sitting here, the voice in my head was just saying, you have power inside you that you need to release. That means that the only real need is to circulate the good you already have. Think about that. You need to release the good inside of you. It's not if you want to live a happy and healthy life, we have to be releasing it. Otherwise, all manner of trouble can come our way. But that's just what came into me just a moment ago. But welcome to the show, Steven. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. That really relates to what Darrell was saying before the break about even just a smile. That's circulating your good. It could be as simple as that. Wanting to share the love in your heart with a stranger.
Yes.
But it can also go as deep as like, I love acting and I want to share my love of acting with, a senior center that I volunteer with and facilitating improv workshops there that I don't get paid for, but I get paid with satisfaction, with fulfillment, with knowing that I am sharing my gifts with the world in a positive way.
Well, you know what's funny? You have something to share with people because of where you're living right now. But I just want to make it clear, the thing that Mike Dugan helped me with when he would say money is not your problem, it helped me realize the big mistake that maybe some of our listeners make, that I know I always made, and that many people make, is they think they need a certain amount of money to do something, or they think, well, this is going to, if I want to live in a certain neighborhood, it's going to cost a certain amount. So I need to figure out, which already puts me at a disadvantage because now I'm working on fear-based problem solving. I got to figure out how I can make more money, enough money, which puts me even more in a psychological deficit, enough money so that we can move to that new neighborhood. Or thinking I need a promotion because I need more money. No, you got to throw the money part out of the equation and just get back to the truth, which is, what would the most joyful thing be? Because when we're joyful, like that reading said, that I have to by being in our own corner is being just as accepting of good for ourselves that we're wishing for others. So what does all this mean? It means that Lori and I have gotten to live in incredible places and do things that, and even buy places in New York City where people would say, that's impossible, you can't do it. But because I was just ignorant enough to have faith in what my friend Mike Dugan at the time was telling me, that's all it took to transform it into such a way that we were able to step right into these things without what the normal laws or rules that other people rely on in their brain to be able to obtain a mortgage for a place in that neighborhood, or to qualify for a certain job, without the necessary credentials. And I'm not saying doing this in any manipulative way and lying and scheming. No, being totally honest throughout the whole process, but at the same time, being so enthusiastic about the possibility and then letting it go to the point where we're careless about it. Careless meaning we're not
like carefree.
Yeah, carefree. But I like that word careless because it gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
So I'm being careless.
I see.
I could care less. I'm not putting the weight of my mentality on trying to figure out how can I make this happen.
Yes, I like that.
So if you're thinking we need a certain amount of money to live in a certain place, Steven has a great story. And it came about in a way that we're going to let him share with you because it was pretty miraculous for most people. And I noticed when he shared it with somebody while I was there, the other person kept having to rely back on these material steps and dismissing it in ways to make it like this was a special case, or of course, because most people don't have patience. He didn't really get that, no, none of that stuff was even part of the equation. So why don't you share the story of where you're living and what's going on now?
Should I read the reading before we forget?
Well, if you think that contributes to it, why not? Because it looks like it does
Yeah,
contribute to it.
it does. This is a reading by Florence Scovel Shinn. Faith is simply knowing that God can do it. You must live fully in the now to make your dreams come true. Time and space are but a dream. Man must bring his future into the now. Blessings that seem so far away in the future are already prepared for you, waiting for you to believe in manifestation. For example, a student desired a watch. I told her to believe she already received it, and she soon received it from a friend. Realization is manifestation. You ask, how can you get rid of doubts and fears which prevent realization? The answer is by taking an affirmation that gives a feeling of security and satisfaction. If you are afraid of a big dog, say, beat it, you big bluff. The courts, fears, and adverse appearances are certainly only big bluffs. A man who worried continually, seeming impossible to stop his worrisome thoughts, took out his watch and said he would worry for half an hour. To his surprise, he found it impossible to worry, for he had put the law of non-resistance into operation. We ask the universal supply and then sigh, I'll not get it. The successful man walks to hidden music. With rhythm in his thoughts, all the traffic goes his way. He has lucky breaks. Out of luck, out of rhythm. So right now I live in Marina Del Rey in an amazing apartment. I'm very happy. And this just came about like from seemingly like just against all reason. So I was living in Hollywood when I met Darrell, and the rent was pretty high, and I was making enough to scrape by.
Well, you could say the amount because then we could hear how everything got better and better.
$1,850 a month in Hollywood. And I was making a certain amount, and Darrell encouraged me to get out and to get into a more affordable and a nicer place. So that's when I learned about the God box. And he said, be extravagant. And I don't know if listeners have learned, but Dugan suggested this to Darrell as well. But, you know, write what you want. You want covered parking? Write it down. You want laundry in the unit? Nothing is too big for God. Nothing is too hard for God. Write it down. You want great cell service, great Wi-Fi service, great location, because it's always location, location, location. So I wrote all these things down, put it in my God box.
A view, because you had no view in Hollywood. It was just a dark cave.
That's right. It was a dark cave. I lived in one of those where the next building over was about 3 feet away from the wall, so I couldn't open any windows because the tenants next door would look right into my apartment.
Well, also, your brain would think if it cost 1,800 plus for this unit with no view, dark and gloomy, how could it be possible? I mean, I'm going to need to spend more money for a better unit, but that's not true.
No, it's not true. So I wrote all this down, put it in my God box. And because Darrell also suggested, you know, start thinking of others. How can you add into the circulation of life? So basically, and I started doing a morning routine, which changed everything. So I started reading books like Touchstones. these little one read the Alan Cohen book. And so these are these
Alan,
positive.
well, tell him that the Alan Cohen book he's referring to is A Deep Breath of Life.
Yes, A Deep Breath of Life by Alan Cohen, and Around a Year with Emmett Fox. And I started reading The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Shinn. So I was really like wanting to understand, because Darrell would tell me all these crazy stories about him and Lori and how he, kind of seemingly stumbled into all these miraculous, wonderful adventures in his life. And I wanted that. So, I'd be constantly asking, what is he reading? What else? What else? What else? And I would just eat it up. And so through work, my consciousness started to change from a getting mentality. Because that's when I met Darrell, I was very all get. I wanted to get. How do I force things to happen? How do I manipulate? And I thought I was very good at manipulating to get what I want, but I wasn't. My life and my circumstances were not proving that I was getting what I wanted. So, Darrell also suggested, you want to move up? You put it in your God box. Lori, his wife, and he would go into neighborhoods that they wanted to either move into or move into a similar like Beverly Hills, like a higher vibration, higher prosperity. Obviously, these neighborhoods are filled with prosperous people because of the homes, the extravagance of it. So he and Lori would go to like open houses or would just drive through these neighborhoods just to feel that vibration, that consciousness. And, to the person who is unfamiliar with these spiritual principles, you think, okay, what is that going to do for anything? You got to make the money first. You got to have all these things in order first. You can't just go soak it in and then God's going to get to work. But I was in a state where I'll believe anything. And he told me what happened from him doing these practices. So I would go to Marina Del Rey because I enjoyed running down there. So I would drive all the way from Hollywood to Marina Del Rey, and I would go on my jogs. And I would soak up the consciousness and the feeling of, oh, look at that condo. It's got a view of the ocean. And, oh, they got a hot tub. Oh, isn't that amazing? And I would feel it. And just like they were sharing earlier about how you guys were sharing and the Florence Scovel Shinn reading, make the reality now. Ask, believing that you receive it. So it's like I would force my mind, and again, sometimes it feels like force. And Emmett Fox says that when you try to make things happen, and Ed said this earlier, when you try to make it happen, it defeats itself, the mental effort. But because I was more focused on being giving and getting joy from giving, where it was just a smile or being kinder to the people, or if I was clearing out my old apartment to make room, because that was another thing that I learned from Catherine Ponder, is creating a vacuum. So I would get some things out of my apartment and give it away to people. Because I was getting joy from those other things, other times where the thought of me living in these places would come in, it would be more of a joyful thought and me not so much forcing it. So it was kind of cool how I'm seeing, as you guys were talking, I was realizing like, yeah, there were times where I had to force it because it went against my normal operating system. But other times it would just joyfully drop into my brain and I would love thinking about it with no effort on my part. So I would feel having a jacuzzi. I would feel having a view of the ocean. And like, oh, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me this wonderful apartment. Oh, I love this apartment. And I ran and I saw this brand new apartment complex being built called Neptune Marina. And I called Darrell and I was like, I found this, it's brand spanking new. They're building it. Like they've got construction crews. This thing is going to be incredible. I see the pool, the hot tub, all these amenities. This is like an amazing complex. But I told him, I said, yeah, but I don't think I'll never be able to get an apartment here with my income. So I was immediately like doubtful. But Darrell said, Steven, these new apartment complexes, because Darrell has experience with all this stuff. He goes, these apartment complexes, when they get built, they always have affordable housing units available. They have to set it aside for Los Angeles County for people with lower income. And I bet with your income, you'll qualify. So that was my footwork. I looked online. It took a little digging, but that was like the footwork, the joyful footwork to look into it. Found the application, applied. This property management company got back to me almost immediately saying, "Hey, okay, we received your application. You qualify." And I, mind you, had to submit all these documents: my income, bank statements, tax returns. Uh, what else? I think that was about it. Um, oh, pay stubs. And they said you qualify. You're 197th in line. So we'll have to put you on a wait list. So, like at first, I was really bummed. And luckily, it really helps to have an encouraging friend like Ed or Dugan or Darrell or, Sue Hodgson, who's online. Having a friend that you could talk to who can encourage you to remind you, because when, I really could have turned it into what's the use? Like, I tried, this stuff doesn't work. What is this? God's teasing me, thinking God's like messing with me, which is a terrible thought to have. And Darrell would say, "Hey, this is something better, Steven. Didn't you write that in at the end of your God box request to God? This is something better. Something even better is going to come into your life." So that helped me to hold on to my faith and not give in to those negative self, feeling sorry for myself. Nothing goes my way, and to let go of it and to, what I wanted to, I got really excited because I thought about the army of the aliens. And so I had my books in front of me. And so I found the little thing. I just want to read it really quick. First of all, you must be wiser than your enemy thoughts. The army of the aliens. This is Florence Scovel Shinn, Power of the Spoken Word. You must answer every negative thought with a word of authority. The army of the aliens will chant, business is dull and money is scarce. Immediately you reply, my supply comes from God and now appears like mushrooms overnight. So that's like these amazing imagine it, these things that I can imagine, like mushrooms overnight. Like that's how God works. Like in the 13th hour. There are no hard times in the kingdom. You may have to keep this up for quite a while, like the song of the katydids, Katy did, Katy didn't, and so on. Also, too, when you read these books from the 20s and 30s, you'll like learn about interesting stuff, stuff from the past. Finally, you win out, for the truth must prevail, and you have put to flight the army of the aliens. Then, when you are off your guard, the army of the aliens begins again. You're not appreciated. You'll never be a success. You answer immediately. God appreciates me. Therefore, man appreciates me. Nothing can interfere with my divinely designed success. So reading these kinds of things and remembering these things and writing them in my journal and keeping them with me, I believe like that's the work that has really allowed this to happen and allowed me to stay on with it, because I really could have said, screw Darrell with his crazy mumbo jumbo. It doesn't work for me. But with this encouragement, I just moved forward. I focused on what's the next right thing. So I focused on my job, continuing to give. And then then I continued looking for apartments. That became a push and shove, and like I got to keep looking on Redfin and
Right.
looking on Zillow and looking at it for an hour. And this is the thing too. When I wake up every morning, I ask God to guide my thoughts. And in God's economy, nothing is wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, I was acting out in a defective way of thinking of lack and like, ooh, I gotta look and do. But
Yeah.
because I did that, I actually got more well versed with like what are the terms like realtors use, apartments, what's this, that, what's the normal price for this kind of amenity, or set that, all these different things, HOA fees, all these new things that I never knew about, but because of my worrisome, lack-filled study, I learned. So nothing was wasted. So by the time
Yes.
I'm more knowledgeable now because of that. But another thing too is being honest with a friend. I would confide in Darrell and go, yo, not yo, we don't talk like that. Darrell, I'm getting kind of nutty over this. I'm starting to feel bad looking. He goes, delete the apps. Just delete the apps. And the worry-filled part of me was like, what, really? No, but I need those apps. But I just believed what he said. I deleted them. I stopped looking. And then Ed, you call out of nowhere just to say hello. I'm in your neck of the woods in Hollywood. I just bought a surfboard off Craigslist and I love it. And then that put the thought in my mind, wait a minute, Craigslist, they have apartments. So I looked into apartments there, found the apartment I lived in for the past 6 years in Culver City. And that one had a view, a balcony. It was airy, it was bright, it was in a better location in Hollywood. And it was, because it was right before COVID, they were trying to rent the unit, so they dropped it $200 a month. So I was paying $1,650 a month. So now I'm paying $200 less.
Hey, I want to tell you, I want to insert something because I remember this. Didn't you have like almost like a Shakespearean run in? Remember a lady on your run that time who said, "Ha ha ha! You'll never be able to live in this neighborhood."
Oh,
Do you
yeah, that's
remember
right. Yeah, that's right. I was running through Culver City because that was another neighborhood that I loved. I would run through there and suck up the consciousness and imagine, oh my gosh, the Little Rascals were filmed here. Batman, the 1960s Batman was filmed right on this ground.
Right.
It's homes and like factories. And I was running in like a joyful mood, and I said hello to this lady, and I struck up a conversation with her, and she was asking me about myself, and I'm like, yeah, I'm looking to like move into the area. She goes, what price range? And I told her, and she goes, ha, good luck with that. So she basically told me like, you'll never live in this part of town because of your income.
Yeah.
Look, I was right near downtown Culver City, which is actually like a better area than where this lady.
Yeah.
With a beautiful view, just a
Unobstructed view.
felt so good in there.
Just
Such a nice place.
Thank you. Yeah, which is unheard of in that part of town.
And your lanai is on my son's beautiful place nearby now. I mean, what's it called? Bistro set, excuse me, is on his lanai. That bistro set you gave my son, he had a very similar experience about a mile away, and now he's living with that bistro set, but that's an aside.
Yeah, it's incredible because Elliot lives this way too.
Yeah.
So I lived there joyfully for the past 6 years, just focused on my job. That's another thing too. Like when I was living in Hollywood, I moved out here for acting, and Darrell was very encouraging to me because I didn't have an agent. I didn't do anything really with acting. So in the span of this past 6-7 years, I've done more with my acting than ever. I have a YouTube channel. I've gotten way more experience with improv. I've taken numerous classes. I've done numerous. Now I facilitate improv workshops, and I've gotten acting work. And now I ride horses.
And you have an agent.
I haven't. I was gonna be the agent. I have an agent now. And now, so it's like everything really has improved. And because I've been focusing on that and enjoying my apartment, I totally forgot about Marina Del Rey. And this past April, I got an email saying, "Hey, hello, Steven. We're reaching out because you applied affordable housing. We now have a unit available for you. It's a 1-bedroom. It's on the 4th floor, and it's $1,092 a month."
So that's 600 less than now even. So now you went from 1,800, 1,600 now, and every time it goes less, you end up in a much nicer neighborhood.
Yes. Now it's basically like I live in a hotel. But this is a brand spanking new.
Well, it's nice in a hotel. You have a washer and dryer in the unit.
I got a washer and
You
dryer.
have a view, and you have a pool, a hot tub.
I have a pool.
A gym, a game room with pool tables.
If you're on YouTube, you can see the view.
He's showing you the view of the marina from his place.
That's amazing.
There are the boats in the background. So,
and then that's towards the ocean. If I lived high enough, you could probably see water.
Right.
It's basically like I live 2 blocks away from the ocean.
It's incredible.
And I just love. Everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. Like the time, like my unit is right by the elevator, so I don't gotta walk them because this is a huge complex. I don't gotta walk a mile to my unit.
Well, wait, it gets better. At the same time this came up, your main employment said they're closing the law office.
Yeah, that's right.
And so if this opening to move it, so this is the crazy part. So your budget is going to be decreased. You got told you were going to be laid off. The factory's closing. And the next thing is, then out of nowhere, this notice comes in that, okay, we're ready for you to come in and apply, firsthand to take the apartment here at the marina. And fortunately, if this happened 2 months later, it wouldn't have worked because you would have been out of work, but you were still in work. You had all your pay stubs, all your ducks in order. And
my taxes, I do my taxes as soon
yes,
as I can. I don't drag my feet. I
so
love
there was,
paying
yeah,
my
there was,
taxes, circulating the money to a country that I love.
there was no lying to say, make it look like I earn less to get in. You just said, here it is. You laid all your cards on the table, and now
Honestly.
you're in the unit, and you looked up the price of that unit if you were an average citizen, and how much would that be?
It's around $5,000 a month.
Yeah, and you're paying a little over 1,000, which means, and Dugan would always remind me of this. He goes, Darrell, no. I know you think, you're not making enough money, but look at how you're living, and how much would somebody else have to pay to live there?
Yeah, because
So
you're-
God is really giving you an income of this amount of money, because it's not how much you earn, it's how much you spend. And it's just amazing, because anyone else would say, well, this is insane. Is this for real? But on our last show, we talked a lot about spirit is real and matter is not. And as we think with faith and love and believe in good, well, then our circumstances are going to reflect that. And if somebody, I used to have a hard time because people would, in certain groups, would say, well, some of us have real problems. Like if I would share this good news, and I'd feel like, what do you mean? I had real problems growing up. And I said, Darrell, no. And now I remind myself of Florence Scovel Shinn says, which is a great response. And it's an internal response. It doesn't mean I say this to them because it's only going to insult them and it's only going to cause more problems. I just go, well, okay. And no, okay, I don't have to stick in this situation with this group and prove myself. But this is the saying that saves me that comes from Florence Scovel Shinn. No, this prosperity, this is the prosperity that my faith has built. This is the good fortune that my faith has brought. This is the good health at my age that my faith has brought. This didn't just happen luckily. This happened faithfully by doing a few simple things day in and day out. But I do them, and so do you, and so do a lot of our listeners. So if you ever feel intimidated after sharing some great news and some people become a little bit dismissive, you don't have to say to them, but just remind yourself, okay, I don't need to get upset here. I don't need to second guess the quality of my life. I just need to reassure myself, no, of course, this anyone can have with faith. Anyone, they could have this with faith.
Yeah, we also got to say that to ourselves when our own inner voice tries to. That's what I've been going through, so much inner army. And I'm so glad you read The Army of Aliens. That stuff is real. The subconscious lunges forward when we're no longer following the guidelines of those little alarms. They get louder because in their mind, they're saving us from death or whatever the thing is that's feared. And we got to do just what Darrell said in that case as well. No, I'm walking this way. This is the road that my faith has built, and I know this is going to work. And every time, I was wondering if maybe you experienced this too, every time I live through something that my subconscious used to fear and thinks, this is the end, and if I just get to that next meditation without reacting, I let it go, I'm like, I feel like I'm 50 years old, and I feel like I'm finally growing up in a new way because I'm letting go of something that is like a child's fear. And I'm like, wow, now I can do this thing that I used to succumb to fear over, and now I'm So there's this like thing that stays with us when we let go of the fears and walk through the fear and then end up in Marina Del Rey. And it's amazing.
It is amazing. I've experienced that all the time of this like growth. You walk through it, and I wouldn't be able to walk through it if I didn't have faith. I would make a terrible decision, or like you said, react in a way that would make things worse. But if I just take a moment, pause, like you said, take a step back, meditate, pray, connect, and let God handle it. That's the thing, is I'm remembering that, and believing that me choosing to do that is moving mountains.
Yes.
That is what moves
Yeah.
mountains.
Yes.
It's taking that
That's right.
that hard redirection, like you guys brought up. It's redirection
Yes.
into the loving way, which
Yeah.
it's all like what we believe is like human survival technique, you
Right.
know. And making that conscious decision really is what lets God get to work.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, this morning when I was at the beach, I woke up the last couple of days feeling really free from something that had been troubling me. But then I realized, like yesterday, flying high. Today, I was before the show, gonna see if I wanted to surf, get in the ocean, and I noticed, like, so the waves weren't very good. So I'm standing there, and I noticed, well, my mind started, my subconscious. Now, even though I wasn't feeling the fear, my mind was like, "Am I gonna feel the fear?" And like it was sitting around waiting to see if it's gonna come back. And so I had like now I only had a half hour till I needed to leave, but I said to him, this is dummying down. We call it dummying down. I said, you know what? I'm going to jump in the water for 10 minutes just to get out of this subconscious pattern of preparing for the worst or even just preparing for the fear or whatever. I'm just going to redirect. It was so helpful. And I realized a lot of what we got to do when we're getting over an old fear pattern is learn now. So what am I going to do with that energy now that I'm not protecting myself or actively making these fearful situations or protecting myself from them? I'm going to open up a ton more energy. So I got to put that into the creative things that I love that I was withholding from before. So if it's surfing or if it's music or acting or sharing, volunteer, whatever it is. But the key is also is that there's a voice inside us that will let us know what the next easy step is. We'll get an inspired idea, and instead of ignoring it. Today, the funniest thing was I walk up, and there must have been people fishing, or maybe it was little kids, but there was all these sand crabs in these little holes that someone had put there, and because the tide now was way too low. So I just, without thinking, started picking up the sand crabs, throwing them back where they could, because they looked like they were all dried out, like they weren't that comfortable. And then there was probably 100 of them, but I just was like, didn't have anything to do. So I felt like a little kid. I was watching each one of them. They'd hit the water and they go, wee, and then they'd dig into the sand. And it felt so good. And it was just reminding me that whatever I just read, someone just read, that it's just about getting, and you talked about, and Steven, it's just about finding a way to get back into a creative giving space. Because when we're creative, and that's what, because I always felt like, for one voice was like, are people looking at me? What's this guy doing picking up sand crabs? But it felt so good. I was like, I don't even care. And then I felt like I was more relating to myself when I was a little kid, and you just like being at the beach, and everything just gets so much more simple. The act of just being alive becomes fun, and it's not, I don't have to overthink everything, and the miracles just start happening.
Yeah. I think I might have shared this on the last show that I was a guest on, with how I now ride. I basically have like a horse for free, and I ride a horse, and I get to enjoy a horse and learn all that for free, and how that came about with
Wait, what's the horse's name, by the way, just for my own sake? What's the horse's name that you hang out with or you ride?
El Gato.
El Gato. All right.
And we're made in God's image. If like what Emmett Fox shares in one of the readings in Around the Year, the book Around the Year with Emmett Fox, and I'm sure it's in other books of his, that if we come from God, then we have godlike qualities. Then we are God.
Yeah.
Like a horse produces a colt. It doesn't produce a little baby cow.
Right.
So if we have these godlike qualities, what is God always doing? God is always harmonizing. God is always giving. God is always watching out for us. God is always caring for each and every one of us. So if I could be more godlike and be that way to my fellow, travelers on this planet right now, to the fellow souls, and be caring. And think of this person. How can I make them feel a little bit happier today? Or what can I do to lighten their load, and like focus on that, like a God quality of mine to help
Right.
harmonize whatever I'm in, whatever, being God's ambassador of love, being love in every situation I find myself in. If I just focus on that, then I know that I'm carrying out the will.
Yeah.
Because it's, and that's the most reassuring thing I can ever, really rely on, is that, because it's like, what do I do with this life? I got so many options.
Yes.
There's so much to do. There's so much to experience. And it's like, and that used to overwhelm me when I was younger. But now that I'm older, I see that nothing's been wasted. And now I'm to a point where I want to just do what I believe, and like you were saying, keep in mind, all these stories we're telling, these decisions that we make could be deemed silly ideas that we would just not act on. I could have never have called Darrell and said, I see this place. I actually think I doubted, like, what's the point of me telling Darrell about this?
Right.
I actually doubted it. And if I didn't go with that silly nudge to call him, or if you never got that silly nudge to call Steven and go, hey, I'm right in your neck of the woods. I got a surfboard down here.
Yeah.
I was thinking about you.
I remember that. Yes.
You were being an ambassador because you thought of me. And like, I'm just going to reach out to hit Steven just to share this, I got a surfboard in his neighborhood. I'm in his neighborhood. That's it. And look what that sparked.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
these all these ideas, these divine ideas, these fun ideas it's all God connecting us, harmonizing our lives to the best, that we all can just like have a best time possible here with each other.
Yeah. And like Thomas C. Sicking said, we turn into geniuses. People go, how did you think to call me? Right? And it's like, how did you think? And it's like,
well, how did you think to call look on Craigslist?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it was because of this, and this. But I just kept saying yes. And like Steven likes to share when he teaches improv, it's because I'm just saying yes and with everything God brings, instead of going, no, that's silly. No.
Right. And I like this idea that Darrell pointed out in the beginning. Sorry to cut you off. I just want to say that we, as metaphysicians, our whole goal is to start to realize that changing our thought, or choosing a new thought, or acting on the inspired thought, is the most powerful thing we could do. So because Steven was just talking about loving others, doesn't always mean leading with the chin and we have to go back into a hornet's nest. If we just change our thought in that moment from judging them or whatever to just sending them love, and then realizing I don't have to do anything, they're a child of God too. Every situation is different, but what I'm saying is, as metaphysicians, I'm coming to see that change in thought, and everything Steven just described, that change of thought from why should I call Darrell, or why should I even do the show today, or whatever, into let's see what God has in mind. It's everything. It literally changes our lives. And I was thinking of Darrell. It's the anti-scheming. Yes. It's the only way out of scheming, which is always fear. And it's really smart and it really knows everything, but it feels terrible. And it always leads to limiting results. It would not have led Steven to a $5,000 a month place that's actually a secure place, not something he has to worry about. Are they going to find out I'm in here? No,
because everything was done
on the up and up.
On the table.
Yeah.
Well, we got a story about you before we wrap up the shop.
Yeah. Did you want to throw in a last thought? I didn't want to cut you off before we say goodbye to Steven Tom Thorpe for the day and before we wrap up the show, that is to say.
Now let's wrap up the show. Thank you.
Okay, because you might recall this.
Wow, that was a great story. Thank you, Steven. All right, so are you ready?
Yeah, back when you were still drinking.
Your acting?
Go
into the role.
Yes, and.
Okay, thank you. You're an actor. Back when he was still a drinking man, Steven Tom Thorpe walked into a bar, sat down, and sternly told the bartender,
"Pour me a whiskey before the trouble starts."
The bartender poured the drink, which Steven quickly downed. Steven belched loudly and said,
"Pour me another before the trouble starts."
The bartender quickly obliged, and Steven downed the drink. Again, this happened a third time. The bartender then asked Steven,
Hey, man, how would you like to pay for these drinks?
Steven took a deep breath and replied,
And now the trouble starts. I don't know if Steven got that one. He was blacked out, so he probably doesn't remember.
That's all right. The acting was, mwah. Thank
I
you.
did get it. It was fantastic. That's the best joke to date.
Thank you both for that beautiful collaborative improvisational activity. Well, thanks everyone for being a part of Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. Thank you, Steven Tom Thorpe.
Thank
Please
you, guys.
subscribe and share the show with your friends. They say that breaking up.
we're
we're gonna go into the
hard
to do. Now I know that it's true. Don't say that this is the end. Instead of breaking up, I wish that we were making up again. I beg of you, don't say goodbye. Can we give our love another try? Come on, baby, let's start anew. 'Cause breaking up is hard to do. Down, doobie doo, down, down. Comma, comma, down, doobie doo, down, down. Comma, comma, down, doobie doo, down, down. Breaking up is hard to do. All right.
Now, is Steve allowed to eat, or he's has to shelter in place?
We landed the bird. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Darrell and Ed and Steven Tom Thorpe. Love you.
Are you going to eat?
Yeah.
I hope everyone out there in YouTube land's going to eat too. Sign us off. Bye, everyone.
Oh, bye-bye.
I wanted to see where Steve was eating.
Yeah, we call him.
Okay. Oh, shoot.
Oh, how about prosperity? I get a free rotisserie chicken from Vaughn's.
Oh, there we go.
Wow, look at that.